YT13. It was a crisp Thursday afternoon in early spring, and the sun cast a soft gleam across the polished chrome hoods lined up outside gleaming motors, a luxury car dealership perched on the corner of a wealthy suburban boulevard. The building stood like a glass temple grand, modern and untouchably expensive. Its windows reflected rows of Bentleys, Aston Martins, and sleek European sports cars. Inside, the scent of fine leather, fresh espresso, and money lingered in the air. Jazz played low through hidden speakers, and the salesman moved with the ease of men used to closing six-figure deals by lunchtime. Everyone inside looked like they belonged. Affluent clientele in tailored blazers, designer sneakers, and gold watches, sipping complimentary lattes while casually debating between models that cost more than most people's homes. No one noticed the sound at first, a sputtering cough of a failing engine approaching the main entrance. But as it grew louder, closer, it pierced the showroom's serene atmosphere like a scratch on a vinyl record. Heads turned. Conversations paused. A black man, likely in his early 60s, rolled in on a battered old scooter, its blue paint chipped and faded, the muffler wrapped in silver tape. He wore a frayed brown coat, faded jeans stiff from wear, and worn-out boots that had long lost their shape. His helmet, scratched and sun-bleached, hung loosely from his hand as he dismounted. He stood tall, despite the years etched on his back. His skin was dark, smooth but marked by time. His hair, silver gray and neatly trimmed. His eyes were calm but sharp, observant. His name was Harlan Whitmore, though no one in that building knew it or cared to ask. To them, he was simply out of place. As he stepped inside, the temperature didn't change, but the air surely did. A receptionist did a quick double-take before busying herself with a stack of meaningless papers. Two young salesmen nearby exchanged a smirk, one whispering something that made the other chuckle under his breath. Across the room, a woman in a silk blouse clutched her purse a little tighter, glancing away with a subtle frown. Harlan walked slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, scanning the rows of vehicles displayed like trophies under soft showroom lights. There was no rush in his steps. He paused in front of a crimson-red McLaren, admired its lines, then turned toward the desk labeled Inquiries. The man behind the counter was in his 30s, with a fitted suit, slick hair, and smug eyes. He glanced up from his phone, gave Harlan a lazy once-over, and offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes?" Harlan nodded politely. "I was wondering about the specs on that new McLaren over there. Also, what's your most expensive car on the floor today?" The salesman blinked, his smirk curling at the edges. He tilted his head, as if trying to figure out if this was a joke. "That one?" He chuckled, loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear. "Sir, that car is over 400 grand. You might have taken a wrong turn. The used dealership is a block down." Laughter flared up from the two salesmen leaning against the wall. No one stepped in. No one offered help. No one asked his name. Harlan didn't flinch. He simply looked around at the people who refused to see him, then back at the man behind the desk. His voice was quiet, steady. "I see." The salesman folded his arms, clearly amused. "Look, sir, this place isn't exactly for window shopping. I'm going to have to ask you not to loiter around the cars. We have real customers in here." Before Harlan could reply, a sharp, irritated voice boomed from a glass-walled office. "What's going on out here?" A tall, red-faced man in his 40s, with slicked-back blonde hair and a silver name badge reading Travis Caldwell, Regional Manager, marched into the center of the showroom. His eyes locked on Harlan like a target. The room shifted. The snickering grew quiet, not out of empathy, but in anticipation of something ugly. Travis's shoes tapped hard against the marble floor as he approached, his tailored suit moving with the stiff posture of someone too used to authority and too eager to assert it. He didn't ask questions, he demanded an answer. "What exactly is going on here?" Travis's voice was sharp, rehearsed in dominance. The young salesman shrugged, trying to look both innocent and victimized. "He was asking about the McLaren, sir. Didn't seem like a serious customer, so I was just redirecting him." Travis scoffed, not even bothering to look at the car Harlan had asked about. Instead, he stepped closer, arms crossed, inspecting Harlan like a smudge on glass. "Redirecting him? You mean you let him in here in the first place?" The laughter that had hovered low around the showroom had now vanished. What replaced it was worse. A thick, choking silence filled with implicit consent. Every pair of eyes in the room was watching now, from clients pretending to scroll on their phones to employees standing still behind their desks. No one intervened. Travis turned to Harlan, his face tight, a practiced smile plastered over contempt. "Sir," he said, dragging the word out like it was heavy in his mouth, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This establishment doesn't permit loitering. These vehicles are, well, they're not for everyone." The words weren't loud, but they hit like slaps. Harlan stood there, still and quiet, watching Travis with a gaze that seemed to stretch deeper than the one was ready for. "I came here to ask questions, not for charity," Harlan replied, his voice low, rich, and controlled. "And I don't recall there being a dress code on the front door." Travis chuckled, short and sharp, then gestured to the uniformed security guard stationed near the entrance. "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. That includes people wasting our time." He paused, eyes narrowing. "Mitch, could you please walk this gentleman out?" The guard hesitated. His name was indeed Mitch, a man in his early 30s, but his eyes didn't hold the same smugness as the others. There was confusion there, even discomfort. "Yes, sir," Mitch finally answered, though his voice lacked the enthusiasm his boss wanted. As Mitch approached, Harlan's posture didn't change. He offered the guard a genuine nod. "You don't need to touch me," Harlan said gently. "I know my way out." Mitch simply stepped aside, allowing Harlan to pass. A few steps forward, Harlan stopped near the crimson McLaren, the very one he had first admired. He looked at it again, just for a moment, but this time not with wonder, with clarity, as if it were no longer a car, but a mirror reflecting back everything this showroom stood for. As Harlan reached the doors, Travis called out one final jab, meant to sting. Next time you want to window shop, try somewhere that sells what you're wearing. It hung in the air like a bad smell. Harlan paused at the threshold. He could have turned around, could have revealed it all, could have burned the building down with truth alone. But instead, he smiled, barely, and looked straight ahead. Outside, he walked back to his old scooter. He took his time strapping on his helmet. His hands didn't shake. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't defeated. Because what they didn't know, what hurt, was how little had changed. A black man in work-worn clothes could still be treated like an intruder in a building his own money helped build. And worse, no one would stop it. He looked back once, just enough to catch the reflection of the dealership windows. Dozens of people returning to their espresso and cold smiles. They hadn't failed to recognize him as a billionaire. They had failed to recognize him as a man. Then, with a quiet breath, he kicked the scooter's engine to life. It coughed, sputtered, then roared reluctantly as he pulled away from the curb and into traffic. He didn't look back again. But someone inside was still watching. Mitch, the security guard, remained by the door, his jaw tight. He didn't know who Harlan was, but something about the way that man walked, quiet, proud, unshaken, stuck with him. A seed had been planted. And seeds, no matter how quietly they fall, have a way of growing where no one expects. The next morning at Gleaming Motors, a calendar alert pinged across every department tablet. Mandatory meeting, 9:30 a.m. a.m. sharp. Investor evaluation. Attendance required. The phrasing alone was enough to turn conversations stiff. By 9:28 a.m., the entire staff was gathered in the central lounge. Travis Caldwell, coffee in hand, tried to project calm. "All right, team, let's be sharp." Probably just one of the big dogs checking up before quarterly reports. The room fell silent as the glass doors opened. A man walked in. Tall, clean-shaven, dark-skinned, dressed in a deep navy bespoke suit. His pocket square was silk. His shoes gleamed like obsidian. A diamond wedding band caught the light. His face, calm yet unreadable, swept across the room like a tide. Travis froze. It wasn't recognition at first. It was disbelief. Then his voice, smaller than usual, pushed out. "You've got to be kidding me." The man looked at him directly, unapologetically. "Good morning," he said. "My name is Harlan Whitmore. I'm here on behalf of Whitmore Kingston Holdings." A whisper rippled across the floor like static. Whitmore Kingston. The name sat heavy in the automotive world, with holdings in nearly 22% of Gleaming Motors, Inc. Travis tried to recover, a smile forced into place. Mr. Whitmore, we weren't informed of your visit. If I'd known, I would have exactly, Harlan cut in, his voice not loud, but moving through the room like a gavel. You would have. You would have laid out the best coffee, shined the floors twice over, called me sir with extra syrup in your tone. You would have performed. But that's not what I came for. I don't need performance. I need truth. He gestured toward the massive wall-mounted monitor. An assistant, who had followed him in unnoticed, tapped a remote. The screen lit up. Surveillance footage filled the display, time-stamped from the day before. There was Harlan in his old coat. The smirks, the dismissive hand waves, the laughter, Travis's entrance, his finger jabbing toward the door, Harlan's calm retreat, and above all, everyone watching, saying nothing. A flush of dread rolled through the staff. You already explained yourself that day, Harlan said, turning to the room, loud and clear. What you sold me wasn't a car. You sold me your values. Travis's smile had faded completely. I built this investment, Harlan continued, because I believed this brand represented excellence, not arrogance. But what I saw here made me question if that vision has rotted. I have already contacted the board. Until there is demonstrable change in management and ethics, my funding to this entire regional chain will be suspended. Effective immediately. Gasps. Travis's mouth opened and closed, words failing him for the first time in years. One more thing, Harlan added. There was someone here who didn't laugh. He did his job with dignity, even when the room didn't deserve it. His gaze fell on Mitch. The security guard straightened, but said nothing. I remember people like that, and I reward people like that. With those words, he turned toward the door. Before leaving, he looked once more around the room. You don't sell cars here, he said finally. You sell attitude, and that, gentlemen, determines the real price. Then he walked out. The silence he left behind was louder than applause. In the weeks that followed, Gleaming Motors underwent the kind of change that couldn't be faked. Travis Caldwell was placed on administrative leave, gone by the end of the week, along with the two smug salesmen. Their exits were quiet, marked only by empty desks. Mitch was called into the regional director's office. You didn't know who he was, did you? The director asked. No, sir, Mitch said. I just knew he didn't deserve to be talked to like that. The man across from him nodded slowly. We need more people like you. Mitch was offered a promotion. Operations coordinator, effective immediately. Corporate implemented mandatory equity and ethics training. Anonymous feedback systems were installed. The tone of the place shifted. Where once there had been glass walls of exclusivity, there now stood open doors. 1 month later, a young black woman in her late 20s stepped through those doors. She wore a plain gray hoodie and sneakers that had seen better days. Her eyes scanned the room cautiously. Before she could hesitate, a man stepped forward, his uniform crisp but his smile genuine. Good morning, ma'am, Mitch said, Welcome to Gleaming Motors. What can I help you find today? The young woman blinked. I was just looking. I know I might not look the part. Mitch shook his head kindly. Everyone looks the part, he replied. We just help you find the right car for your story. From the sidewalk outside, a man paused to watch the scene unfold. Harlan Whitmore, dressed simply in a dark jacket, leaned against a lamppost. He wasn't there to inspect. He was just passing through. A quiet contentment settled in his chest as he saw something small but powerful. Dignity being practiced without permission. As the wind picked up, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the morning crowd. No applause, no headlines, just the silent proof that sometimes it takes a man walking in with nothing to remind a place what it means to have everything.